Hey guys, so we've got a kind of an issue with this riding mower. This is a John Deere LA135. It was mowing fine. We stopped the machine to empty out the bags, and then when we restarted the machine, it wouldn't move. So after looking at it, it looks like that belt that drives the transmission had come off. So I wanted to show you how to get that back on and know why it came off. So stay tuned. Okay, so we got the machine in the shop. We had to push it. I asked for some help from my kids, and actually I'm going to cheat a little bit. Let me tilt this down a little bit. I have one of these jacks for lifting up the riding mower, so that's going to make it a whole lot easier to get under the machine. So the first thing that needs to happen, in this case with this jack, I need to take the mower deck off, and I have a bagging system, so I'm going to have to take the chute off that goes from the mower deck up to the bagging system. So that needs to come off, the mower deck needs to come off, and then we're going to lift the machine up in the air, and I'll show you the belt that had come off. So to take the mower deck, or excuse me, the chute off, there's just a bungee cord here, and in the back you won't be able to see it, but I'll show you once I get this chute off, and the whole thing just slides right off. These are the bungee cords that I was talking about, that they've got little hooks on there that hold them onto the mower deck. So once the bottom comes off, it just slides right out of the bagging system. So lay that aside, and then we're going to move on to removing the mower deck. So first thing that you need to do to remove the mower deck is actually lower it to the lowest mowing setting. Okay, so the first step after lowering the mowing deck as low as it would go, in this case on an LA series John Deere, there's a pin up front. I've got my finger on it. That needs to come out, just like that. So it's a pin that looks like this guy, and then this arm will just come out of the way. So while we're up here, this is the belt that drives the blades. We're going to remove that belt. That should just slide on out of there. That you have these black metal guides, and they lift right out of those. So now we're at the rear of the mower, and there's a couple more of those same pins that need to come off. The first one is right up here. You can see I'm just going to pull it straight out, and there's a washer. That washer comes off. Save that, put that aside, and then up on this arm, if you follow that forward, there's another pin that needs to come out. So I'm going to reach up here. Probably won't be able to see it, but I'm just pulling that pin out, just like that. So in this, after that's done here, I'm going to take this arm off. There's the weight of the mower deck on it. So now there's no weight on there. And I might have trouble doing this one-handed, but this arm is just going to slide right off too. Oh, that wasn't bad. So also on this side, there's this cable that needs to come off. So to take that cable off, let's see if I can get you down there. There's a pin right here. That pin comes out. You can pull this cable, and it's going to come right out of that bracket. On the other end of this cable, there is a spring. Let's see if I can show that to you. Okay, so there is the spring, and that is just going to come lift it up and out of that bracket, just like that. This bracket is what puts tension on that belt. So now that that's out of the way, we're just going to set that aside. So what we did on this side of the lawnmower, we're going to repeat on the other side, with the exception of that cable that's only got one of those cables. Okay, so at this point, this mower deck is completely disconnected from the machine. I'm going to go ahead and use this jack, and we're going to lift up the mower. Okay, with the lawnmower all the way up in the air, I'm going to pull this mower deck to the side and I'll show you up underneath this machine. Okay, so we are under the lawnmower. You can see the belt right here. This is the belt. And this is the transmission. This pulley right here, that needs to be connected to this belt. And as you can see, it's not. It's really loose. It's off of that pulley, following the belt. So the belts are all in place on the idler pulleys, but you may be able to see here that the belt is actually twisted. So this pulley is a V-notched pulley, whereas this one is actually flat. So on the flat side of this pulley here is supposed to ride the back side of this belt. As you can see, this belt is a V-shaped. It kind of tapers down to one end. The back side needs to be riding on the flat one, to where this V-notched side needs to be in here, and it's not. So what had happened, looks like, is up on the other end of the engine, it also had come off. And it might be hard to tell, but there is a sizable gap between these belt guides and this pulley. This pulley is connected to the engine of the machine. So what it looks like had happened is there was enough slack in the belt to where when I set the parking brake, the belt came off between this pulley and these belt guides. So when I get the belt back on, I'm actually going to bend these closer in to this pulley, and that should keep it all in place. So our first step in getting this belt on is to take and loosen or completely remove these two idlers. This is a 15 millimeter nut, both of these. So we're going to go ahead and take those off now. Whew, plenty of dust, that's for sure. So I'm just going to finish these guys off by hand. Okay, and these should just slide right off. Yup. Oh, am I a liar? Oh, that one did. They should just slide off, so this one's being a little stubborn here. Okay, so it is definitely a two-handed operation. I have someone else holding the camera now, but that does just come off, and you can see that the belt is twisted here, and that's not how it should be. Once you got those two idler pulleys off, it's time to remove this guy, or at least loosen it. It doesn't have to come completely off, but it needs to drop down, you know, a good inch or so just to get past those belt guides up there. So this is a 16 millimeter bolt. So this is probably going to make some dust. So here we go. Okay, so this is loose. You can see the belt guides up here. I'm going to see if it'll... Okay, so that was easier than I thought. I thought that one might fight me a little more. So I'm going to back this off enough to where this upper pulley clears the belt guides up there. And it looks like that's about where I want it. Okay, so once this pulley has dropped down enough to clear these belt guides, you just got to make sure this belt gets back into those pulleys with the V side of that pulley, that notch side, fully seated in here. And make sure it's not binding on any one of those guides. And then I'm going to push on this pulley back up.
Grandpa's here.
and then you'll be able to tighten that back up with that 16 millimeter nut. So here we go, we're gonna tighten it up. Okay, so now that that guide is all in place and that belt is in place, we're gonna come back down here to the transmission, and we're actually gonna set that belt in place too. And so just to make sure that everything stays in place, I'm putting some pressure on the back side of this belt with the V part to the inside, and that way I know everything's going to be lined up when I put this belt onto the transmission pulley. Okay, so back on the transmission pulley, something to note is there is a second belt guide, and you can see it there. It does have a bolt style head on that, and you are going to have to unthread that to get the belt back into place. Alright, so the belt guide is back in place on the transmission pulley. That honestly is a complete bear to get to. They do not give you a lot of room to work, so just know that's going to be a problem. But now with the transmission pulley back in place and the belt on it, and the same goes for the engine pulley, we are ready to put these idler pulleys back on. So remember, this is the flat pulley. This one had that V style notch on it. So I'll show you, once I get that flashlight out of the way, I'll show you how to get that back in place. It's pretty straightforward. So this is the flat pulley, and I'm gonna try to do this one-handed, but you'll have better luck doing it with two hands. So that's loosely in place there. I'm gonna do the same thing with the V notch pulley, which is this guy right here. That's gonna go back here toward the rear of the machine. So those idlers are loosely in place, and we can start the belt on those idlers, and then you're going to want to push them all the way up to where they seat in place. Same with this one, we'll seat that one. And that one's not really going to stay in place, so I'll have to hold it there while I tighten this nut. So again, those are 15 millimeter nuts. Okay, so we're gonna tighten them up. Might make a little noise and dust here, so tightening them up. So there's that. We'll do the V pulley, and again, make sure that it is fully seated before you tighten it. Otherwise you will ruin that pulley. It has a ball bearing. That's what that yellow piece in the middle is a ball bearing. So those are nicely in place and centered up on that little collar. So everything is back in place. As you can see, the belt is loose. That is because I've got the parking brake set right now. So I'll take the parking brake off and I'll show you what the belt looks like when it's all tensioned up. Okay, so with the parking brake off, you can see how much more tension is on this drive belt. So all this is in place, looks great. So the last thing, and what I think was the cause of our issue, is adjusting those belt guides around the engine pulley. Okay, and so just about the best way I've found to adjust those without removing that bracket, which is doable, is just with these channel lock pliers and taking and bending them in like that. And we'll do the same thing with this one. And honestly, I think this is the belt guide that had the issue. So just bringing it in like that, looking for, 1/8 inch, 3/16, somewhere in there, but probably closer to the 1/8 inch range. So I think that will do it. We'll go ahead and lower the machine and put the mower deck back on, and we'll see if it works. Okay, so it's all back together. Got the mower deck back on. Just know that everything that I showed you on how to take it off with those pins, just do the exact opposite. So nothing fancy there. So the mower deck's back on, got the chute back on. I think it's ready to go. So hopefully you learned something just with those belt guides, how important they are with keeping the belt on track and in place all the time. So if you did learn something, I ask that you give us a thumbs up, and if you think about it, subscribe, because we do things like this. We try to anyway, fairly often. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.